Okay, well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dan McFadden. I'm the co-founder and managing director at Edalex. It's my great pleasure to chair our webinar today on how community colleges can address skills gaps, make invisible data visible, and increase learner agency. Today, we have a fantastic session, and you'll hear from a number of different speakers. We can go to the next slide. We'll start off with Dr. Rufus Glasper talking on the community college challenges and opportunities, followed by Darin Hobbs speaking about skills alignment, competency-based education and skills wallets, followed by Margo Griffith discussing how to make skills visible. We will have a Q&A session at the end that we ask that you please hold submit your questions through the Q&A, and we've allocated a good amount of time to have some robust discussions with our panelists and with the audience. So again, please submit your questions through the Q&A. We'll have ample opportunity to get to those. First, let's start with some introductions. So Rufus Glasper is president and CEO of the League for Innovation in the Community College, an international nonprofit organization with a mission to cultivate innovation in the community college environment in a continuing effort to advance the community college field and make a positive difference for students and communities. Dr. Glasper, Chancellor Emeritus of the Maricopa Community Colleges, served as Chancellor from 2003 through February 2016, and held district leadership positions for 3 decades. Nationally, Rufus serves as an advisory board member for the Center for Community College Student Engagement at the University of Texas at Austin, the Community College Research Center at Teachers College at Columbia University, and the Belk Center for Community College Leadership and Research at North Carolina State University. Dr. Glasper serves on the board of directors for the Education Design Lab, as well as for COMAB. He has also served as trustee for the Higher Learning Commission and the American Council on Education. Rufus has notable additional achievements, but I'll leave it just there so we have time to continue the introductions, and obviously we want to hear directly from our speakers. Next, we'll hear from Darin Hobbs, Vice President of Learning and Employment Records at Western Governors University. Darin has over 20 years of management and customer service experience in various professional, academic, and volunteer capabilities. Darin is known for innovative solutions that create efficiencies within the work environment and constantly thinks creatively about how to reimagine the student record. Darin has devoted his career at WGU to transforming higher education for the benefit of students. Darin is a business owner of Records in the Achievement Architecture initiative that seeks to transform a student record into a learner-owned digital record of achievement that is skills denominated, machine actionable, and built upon a foundation of open standards. Margo Griffith is a principal skills consultant at Edalex. Margo's in-depth knowledge and experience of skills, the skills ecosystem, and digital credentials is a result of working in and with higher education providers and EdTech leaders, nationally and internationally, for over 30 years. She is passionate about the positive impact of technology within education and the enablement of lifelong learning, learner agency, and mobility. Margo co-convenes a cross-sector community of practice around micro-credentials in Australia and consults with government, industry, and education sectors around a skills-first approach to learning and workforce. Her recent publications include contributing to Creating the University of the Future, a global view on future skills and future higher education, as well as Technology Enablement of the Skills Ecosystem with Naomi Boyer from Education Design Lab. Okay, well, I hope you'll all agree with me. Fantastic set of speakers that we have today. Just before we hear the speakers, allow me to provide some context around our discussion. If we can move to the next slide. There's been a number of forecasts, one that I've included here around the forecast talent shortage by the year 2030 in the US alone of 6 million people. If we narrow that down just to a slice from the technology perspective, that forecasts lost annual revenues of $162 billion. So from a macro lens, there's a huge challenges but also opportunities ahead of us. If we flip that to take a look at the learner perspective, we commissioned some market research that identified that only a third of American higher education graduates felt comfortable voicing their skills during their first job search. So we have this giant chasm between what employers and industry are looking for and the comfort level of individuals. When we layer in the opportunities, but also the challenges that artificial intelligence introduces as well, we can certainly agree that there are a wide range of challenges and opportunities ahead of us. And at Edalex, we pride ourselves on helping to tackle some of the wicked challenges around employment, employability, skills visibility, and skills recognition. We provide a series of platforms and services to enable skill definition with our OpenRST platform, skill development with our open source Open Aquella digital repository, and skill discovery with our Credentialite platform at scale. Okay, well, let's dive right in. So really thrilled to have Dr. Rufus Glasper kick off our session today with the topic of community college challenges and opportunities. And just a reminder to please start entering your questions into the Q&A section, and we'll hold the questions until the end, where we'll have a great Q&A session. So Rufus, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dan. And thanks everyone for joining us today. You know, as I was looking at the description, and we're talking about community colleges having a unique position to address the challenges of skill gaps, I just want to share from a perspective of meeting with our community colleges and looking at the evolution of caring. Over time, we have been tasked with the opportunities to provide access to individuals coming to our community colleges, and then we progressed to retention, and then completion, and then we added jobs. As we progressed along this continuum, our faculty started to understand and change into different roles, and are still kind of struggling with the last piece of it, and that's the jobs piece. When you start thinking about the jobs that are out there right now and what's happened prior to the pandemic, and also what is happening now, community colleges are still looking at enrollment declines. We're looking at what are many describe as dismal completion rates. We have too many people that are living in poverty, and too many people are looking at debt. And we're trying to make the decision whether or not education matters. And then along comes this notion of advancing your skills, adding to your skills, new language that's being shared now. And I would tell you that we're involved now in a revolution of change that's engaging us around the mission of community colleges as we focus on all of those elements of change, but primarily I will talk about the notion of the two sides of the house. And the two sides of the house are credit and non-credit. When I think about trying to focus on the skills, faculty are confused. Faculty are confused about their role, because as they start looking at institutions, one of the major challenges we have, especially with declines in enrollment, is decline in funding. As we look at funding, most state formulas across the US are defined on the academic credit side of the house and not non-credit. As we advance and use this new language and develop new programs and bring in new skill sets, it's because technology is moving at such a rapid rate. The needs of our companies are advancing rapidly. And I will proffer to you that education is still trying to understand and move at the speed of business. Engaging business and defining and even responding to a company like Boeing when they come to you and they say we need 425 harness workers, and the college comes back and says, I think we can do that for you, but we'll have to get back to you in about 10 months after we go through our committees and our processes and such. And we are being advised that no, we need it in 10 weeks. And then once you get this credential, we're trying to think about the notion of what is its value? What are the skills that you now have? How is its value? Who values it? And where is it posit on your record? Is it with the National Student Clearinghouse? Is it on, does the badge, is that something you can carry with you? And all of these organizations now are struggling to determine what should be part of a student's record, how trusted can it be, and whether or not individuals should rely on that. As we are looking at labor management data, we're starting to recognize that the language that we are choosing, especially when you look at our student population of first generation, low income students are a large population. Many of them have not come back to our colleges. They are looking to try to have this notion of agency, to understand where do they fall. How will they get the support if they focus on a short-term credential? And does that short-term credential match up to the guided pathway that many of our students are asked to follow? And many of our students are coming to our institutions because they are able to do so because of financial aid. So if you come in on the non-credit side of the house, then you need to translate it into credit. You need to have faculty members who understand how we can transition our students from one side of the house to the other side of the house, and then transition them to the completion of a stackable degree to complete a 2-year degree and or transfer to a 4-year degree. As we look at defining the language, we're looking at different types of outcomes. And I would also posit to you that one of the outcomes we should possibly look at is the notion of short-term success. And to me, short-term success can be in a fast-track program, can be in a credential, and allow our students to live what I would describe as a livable wage. So as we move forward, as we look at the changing nature of our student population, as we look at the visible data that we can see and capture it, how will it be interpreted by the employers? How will it be interpreted by our colleges so that we can prepare our students to meet the student outcomes that are necessary to make them employable? So as you go through this webinar today, I will add one other factor. In order for us to make this transition and change, one of the major challenges we are looking at right now, and that is the CEO leadership. In CEO ranks across the country, many of our CEOs are transitioning. The average tenure of a community college CEO right now is about 3 years. And when you're making a movement like this, it's very difficult for a CEO to bring together the necessary bodies within an institution, because it cannot just be the C-suite. It needs to be the faculty, because we're now looking at quality assurance. How does that map up when you now have individuals who will be pushing credentials, supporting your institution at a higher rate than they have in the past? And they may not have a master's degree in the area or a master's degree plus 18. They may have prior learning experience. And that's what we're trying to push our students to do as well. So I'm asking you to have an open mind. I'm asking you to think about your role within your institution. I'm asking you to think about the pervasiveness of this evolving transition and be a part in it. And welcome to the new innovation and transformation of our community colleges to address our challenges and our opportunities. Thank you.
Okay, no, that's wonderful, Rufus, and yeah, there's so much to unpick here. I love that expression of education is still trying to move at the speed of business, but also then translating that to the learner perspective and those concepts of short term versus long term and stackable degrees and credentials. So fantastic, certainly a lot to build on from there. So a reminder to everyone to please feel free to pop your questions into the Q&A. And we'll also, throughout the webinar, we'll also have a series of questions and opportunity for audience participation. So if we can go, there we are. So if you can just grab your phones and feel free to just scan that QR code, and you'll jump into Slido, and we'll have three questions throughout the webinar today. So we'll give just another 30 seconds or so for people to be able to make sure you grab that QR code, and then after that we'll move to our first poll question. All right. So the first question is, what do you see as the main barrier to a skills-first approach at your community college or at your institution? So and yes, I see it. The question has popped up on the phone. So again, for those who haven't yet connected, there's still that QR code. So great opportunity, and we'll see the word cloud pop up here. Resources. And again, I think that certainly resonates with one of the key points you flagged there, Rufus: consistency. Interesting. Great. Yeah, great to see people contributing. Yeah, love to see the range of ideas. Do see. Okay, great. Faculty buy-in. Yes. Right. And I think as we see these coming in, yeah, again, I think these will be some themes that we can capture and reflect upon during the Q&A as well. All right, well, we'll give just another 30 seconds or so. But yeah, and I think we do. Yeah, okay. Traditional thinking is an interesting one as well. And again, I think that reflects back to your comment, Rufus, around education, moving at the speed of education, not so much at industry, but certainly resources, money, funding, technology. And that's a point that we'll come back and highlight later. Marketing, faculty buy-in, communication. So many fantastic points here. And so certainly great points for us to think about and discuss during the Q&A. Fantastic. 5 more seconds for the last people to get their feet. I see one participant has a final comment to add in there. So, but again, so many other ideas, individual ideas. So it's wonderful to see. Yeah, the Carnegie unit, and hopefully some movement there is underway as well. But yeah. Brilliant. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Yeah. Again, we'll have a couple other questions throughout the session, but let's go ahead and move on to our second speaker. So, Darin Hobbs is going to talk to us about skills alignment, competency-based education, and skill wallets. So, Darin, over to you.
Thank you so much, and I really want to kind of express my gratitude to you, Dr. Glasper, for your remarks. You made note of some things that I jotted down that I think is super relevant. And then following with that word cloud Slido exercise, I saw a bunch of words popping up, and I made notes on those as well. And when I think about what Dr. Glasper said versus the word cloud, I think having an open mind and not just C-suite, stackability, short-term success. I want to kind of provide a cognitive handle real quick on how I think about that. And that is that this whole movement towards skills, the learning and employment record ecosystem development, you may have heard comprehensive learner record, is best conceived of as a grassroots movement. This is not top down. This is in many ways bottom up. At WGU, we place tremendous value on partnerships. So this is not a go it alone sort of endeavor. That there are others out there that will work with you, that will support you, that will guide you. It's all about partnerships. So let's go ahead and jump into my first slide. And that slide is on digital credentials. What are digital credentials? You've already heard the word badges used at least once. Digital credentials is just a concept for taking the outcomes of learning or taking the outcomes of assessment or the outcomes of experience, work experience, military experience, and expressing that in a digital way that is human consumable, but also is machine readable and actionable. And the reason digital credentials are so important, you can see those bottom three bullet points, the shareability of it, the portability, adding significant value to one's talent identity, one's talent brand, and providing manifest evidence of how someone qualifies for a job role or qualifies for transfer credit, placement, etc. Let's go to the next slide. You know, at WGU, we are a competency-based university, but we recognized the importance of skills about 3 years ago, probably getting close to 4 years ago, that our competencies, though, do address and are targeted to the labor market to qualify people for jobs. They still represent a bundled way of thinking about how someone can demonstrate knowledge, skills, and abilities. So we doubled down and we denominated all of our competencies with skills. And we started at a high level skills category. So you think of like the word communication. Communication you see oftentimes on job descriptions, must be proficient in communication, both written and oral. But what does that mean in terms of a job? Because jobs are very different. And so we developed what's called a rich skill descriptor, which you'll see here in a bit, that contextualizes what do we mean by communication for this job or in this situation or for this other job. And then as we started going down that road and started creating our first badges, it was the Wild West. We had badges everywhere. And some of them were kind of cartoonish looking. So then we recognized that we needed to create a framework around our badges. Why do we badge? And here you can see on this screen, we basically have this set now. We offer competency badges, certificates, certifications, which come from third-party vendors, specializations, and then of course our degree. And underneath that, you can see how we've defined each of those. And so my message to all of you, my colleagues, is you need to think about what does digital credentialing mean for you, for your course outcomes, for your program outcomes, whether or not you should do micro-credentials, which community colleges, you already have an example of that if you participate in any kind of CTE program development. That is a micro-credential, definitionally speaking. The bottom line there, clear market value. We determined that we would not offer any kind of digital credential unless we could demonstrate and draw a clear straight line to what this credential means and what it means in the market in terms of ROI for our students. There must be market value, and then we will credential it. We will also make what's called simply assertions. It's another form of a digital record. It is an assertion about what someone can do. WGU soon will be issuing what we call course level pass assertions. One class may not warrant a badge like you see on the screen right now, but a course still has skills and competencies and needs to contribute to someone's talent brand. So we will make assertions as well in order to deliver that value to our learners. And that's beneficial because it also addresses those students that do not complete with us a credential. We still want them to derive value from their time with us. And so that's the plan that we're implementing. So how can you do this? How could you create badges? Well, a lot of the work has already been done. There is technology out there that can ease this burden for you. You don't have to have people sit down, your faculty, and say, okay, well, what skills come out of this course? There's technology that will analyze the course syllabus, the course description, and make recommendations. And then all you simply have to do is tag to them. Take advantage of the technology that exists, and some of it is even available at low cost, some of it no cost. So that's one way for you to think about. Again, this is a grassroots movement. Think about how all of the outcomes from community colleges stack, to use Dr. Glasper's word, toward higher level achievements that then simply uplifts someone's talent brand. Let's go to the next one. I want to give you an example of how we construct a badge. That's the next slide. So you're looking at one of our certificate badges. And this has been defined in the Open Badges digital format. So we provide a description. You can see that the achievement type is certificate, and then we include the earning criteria. Earning criteria is extraordinarily important because it is a clear manifestation of what any individual had to do to demonstrate that they have the KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities, to warrant the earning of this credential. Let's go to the next one. Next slide. Underneath that, you can see that we still have our competency demonstration highlights. We are a competency-based university. And then at the bottom, all of those skill alignments. These are how the competencies align to the skills, or vice versa, how the skills support the competencies. And all of those are hypertext. You can see that they're clickable links because they are defined in what's called the rich skill descriptor schema, which is, again, taking that skill category and contextualizing it so that the technology we leverage for our digital wallet can align it to jobs. Let's go to the next slide. What is a digital wallet? It's just a container. Really, that's all it is. It's a container for all of these assets to flow into. It does impart and connote the sense of ownership of an individual over their own record. Let's go to the next slide. Here's an example of WGU's digital wallet platform. We took a platform based, and you can see the 4 quadrants represent the 4 different functional areas of our wallet. Top left is the person's skills profile. All of those blocks represent the individual skills coming from our competencies. To the right of that is an example of a credential. You saw that on the previous slides as to how we define it. You can also see that an individual has the ability to accept it, dispute it, make it public, make it private. Bottom left is the skills definition, a single skills definition, along with details. And then lastly, career pathways. This is where the magic happens. We're able to take an individual's digital credentials as well as their self-attested skills and start to show them how they fit into job career opportunities. And individuals can explore many different jobs. And then they begin to understand the transferable nature of skills, which is a powerful notion. Skills are not aligned to just a single sector. They are transferable across sectors. So individuals understand that if I need to pivot, if I'm disrupted by AI, I'm not starting from scratch. Let's go on and go to the next slide. Here's a deeper look at that skills profile, but here you can see that my colleague, Kimberly Levine Hinckley, has run her skills profile up against a marketing analyst job. And now her skills profile looks different. Some of the blocks are solid, some are candy striped. Solid blocks are the skills that she matches to for this job profile. Candy striped is her skills gap. Those are missing skills. further, and I don't think I have a slide on this, but if she was to select one of those missing skills, we can also show her through this platform, Educational Pathways. Where can she go and gain that skill? Let's go to my last slide. Next slide. All right, so why does all of this matter? What's the point? You can see here that digital credentials from their wallets are used in terms of recruitment, the job application, selection, all of those boxes. This allows employers to understand how someone matches to their talent needs so that they can make smarter, more precise hiring decisions, which theoretically leads to longer job retention. And that's why we're doing this. We educate our students in order to help them grow their talent brand, identify their life's passions and ambitions, and we show them how to get there. And I think I've gone over time.
No, that's perfect. Thank you, Darin. And that's wonderful to see how you've built on top of what Rufus shared. And I think yeah, one comment that was in the general chat was saying Patrice flagged that she had no idea that WGU had this. But I think one of the really important points and concepts that you made is you also referenced where you started from. So it's amazing to see what WGU has built out over the last years, but that may be intimidating for individuals and institutions who are thinking, well, how do I get started? And so that reflection that this is absolutely a journey, and we do hold WGU up globally as an example of what's possible. But I think it's also very important around where people can start and where they should start. So we'll reflect on that in this in our next Slido question for the audience, but also a reminder, and we do have a number of questions coming into the Q&A. So any questions you have, to ask Rufus, to ask Darin, coming up, Margo as well, please feel free to put those in the Q&A and we'll come back to this. So now our second poll in Slido. So what might be your first step towards aligning to skills in your community college or in your educational institution? So please feel free to type in and we'll see that the word cloud build out as well. Again, we can build some other concepts and ideas that from this that we'll be able to reflect on in the Q&A. Okay, great. So the first one already reflecting that tie back to industry, and again, which Rufus touched on as well. Board buy-in, vetting platforms for digital badges, employer engagement. Brilliant first steps here. Faculty Senate, connecting with industry. So we're seeing community engagement, engaging with students. So I'm recognizing who all those stakeholders are and being able to engage with each of those groups. Okay, all right. This is great. So it's interesting with this word cloud, we're seeing a lot of, and I suppose, given that a number of these are longer responses, so we're seeing a number of them, but we are certainly seeing themes starting to bubble to the surface. So we've got a few more typing. So yeah, we'll give another 15 seconds, 30 seconds for people to put their comments in. But yeah, certainly that concept of engaging, we're seeing that across. Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, one participant left. So typing. So yeah, go ahead and finish that. All right. Wonderful. Well, thank you for all of those comments. And again, we'll circle back to that during the Q&A. So, all right. Well, our third speaker today, Margo Griffith, from my colleague at Edalex, is going to talk to us, share some concepts around making skills visible. So, Margo, over to you.
Thanks, Dan. So good morning, everybody. As people have probably indicated, it's quite early. So if I'm not making sense, it's entirely up to you guys to let me know that. If we can jump to the next slide, Chris. Yeah, I really appreciate again to Dr. Glasper in setting that big picture about why we're doing this, because the why is just so important. And Darin, appreciate too that this is a grassroots movement, right? You know, that this is not something that's going to be pushed down from the top, that we all have a part to play. That, you know, just looking at, and I've seen this presentation before, Darin, I'm blown away still every time I see what WGU has achieved and can do. I suppose perhaps from the perspective of people watching this, it is a little overwhelming too, you know, that the breadth of what you've managed to do. So I would encourage people to just think about, just start, you know, even if it's just a spreadsheet, right? Just start. And essentially, you know, if you just start, that's where Edalex comes in, because what we can do is start small with you and then grow. So we are essentially the tech plumbers, I suppose, the skills plumbers. What we help you do is scale and sustain your models, your processes, and make sure that, you know, when your human resources leave the project, that it still goes on, because that's super important. And as Darin indicated, you know, the tech doesn't have to be a multi-million-dollar platform. A lot of the companies and the people that are working in this industry are here for the right reasons. So always ask the question. Before we dig into what we do, and you can probably see what's been happening, Dr. Glasper has painted the wider picture. Darin has indicated actually what's possible from an institutional perspective. Imagine if we're lifting the lid on all of that and we're going down into the weeds. And that's where Edalex lives. We live in the skills data weeds. And so before I get into exactly those weeds, thought it might be interesting for you to understand some of the use cases we have with our partners. And probably the first thing you'll see from this slide is that they're really different. Again, it goes back to that point. Your technology should work for your processes and your models, right? Not the other way around. Technology is not driving so much what you're doing. We're trying to enable this and scale this. We've worked with Scouts Australia for a while now. They have some pretty complex awarding models because they're doing non-formal to formal pathways. And some of that is some pretty funky mapping in the back end. It started from a compliance perspective. We have just completed an amazing project. Well, not completed. We have just gone live with Education Design Lab, which is, we've built the end-to-end from a learner journey across multiple platforms. And it's really the first proving ground for a learner to move across these different systems, to moving the data across different systems. And we've really tested the boundaries of those interoperable data standards. We also work with TAFE Queensland. It's a statewide TAFE system, like a community system in the US, who are doing badging at scale. They work with industry. They're at 25,000 plus per annum, and they are growing exponentially. We also have HSPA, a whole of school. It's our flagship digital recognition project. We're digitally recognizing their curriculum, their cross-curriculum, which is the durable skills, and their co-curriculum through digital badges and the learner dashboard. We can tell you more about that. And at Central Queensland, we do a credential as you go project. At the moment, it's durable skills, but we're moving on to how we can recognize vocational qualifications within wider degrees. And with University of Melbourne, we're helping them to closely align their post-professional microcerts with the industry. So we're making all of that visible for learners and for employers. So yeah, very different use cases, but it all comes back down to the data at the back end. Next slide, please. And how we do this, and of course, there'll be a quiz on this particular slide later. No, it's really hard to see it, and I understand it. But what we do is that we integrate with where your learner data lives, which is usually in a learning management system. And we take that data not just from one course. It could be from multiple courses in multiple assessment areas, because we know that skills don't live in one unit. They live across many different learning opportunities. And we map that. We map that into what we call an evidence matrix within Credentialate. If you just click for me, Chris. Yeah. Up the top here, you'll see that there's little colored boxes. They're the levels. And so we can also bring in the data and map both the quantitative data, the scores, and the qualitative data. And down the left-hand side, I know you can't see it, but those are the elements. And so if we're awarding, say, an overarching competency or credential, those elements are what we refer to as the skills. You could refer to them as other things, but they're the skills. And so we map all of this. It's a one-time mapping, and then you can reuse it if you need across other situations. Thanks, Chris. So what do we do with all of that data once we map it and align it? I should point out that when you bring it in, when we map it in, we're not only mapping it to skills, we're also mapping it to frameworks. And so we also have a frameworks library within Credentialate. So we can do, a multi-level mapping there. Keep clicking, Chris, because remember, we're bringing out, bigger boxes so people can see it. This is what we produce for Scouts. This is a personal evidence record. And we produce this to make as a tool for learners, right? So that they have it visible for them, so that they can talk to their skills in usually hiring situations. With Scouts, it's pretty busy, but what they're doing is aligning to our vocational units of competency. It's a competency-based system, so we're not bringing in any qualitative information because it's competent or not competent. And so that's the way that they want their information represented. Next slide, please, Chris. This is a more traditional personal evidence record or standard personal evidence record. Again, we're awarding and asserting that Alexandria has teamwork, and you can see all of the various elements underneath that are the skills. But what it talks to is how she did, right? When you award a digital badge and you have the earning criteria, it talks directly to what's needed to earn that badge, sure. But there's really no information about how I did, or how Darin did, or how Dan did. And so this really digs down and allows the learner to tell their story. If you could click again, please, Chris. And keep clicking, yeah. One of the things we can bring in to this personal evidence record is also the artifacts or the proof, right? So if you're asserting Alexandria's got teamwork, and you might want to bring in some of the proof points. This is all building trust. The more transparent we can be around what it takes to earn these digital credentials, the better the ability to tell the story, and the better the trust exchange between the learner and the employer. Thanks, Chris. Next slide. Just another real quick one. If you're in K-12, you may not want to render it in the same way as in higher ed or your post-secondary. We can also render the information in a more of a portrait of a graduate style. And in doing this, you can see it's pretty flexible, right? The personal evidence record is pretty flexible around how we can arrange the information for your purposes. I'm going to hone in on one of the other things that we can put into this personal evidence record is this skill definition. Darin spoke about it before. It's being able to define and put more context at a skill level in a way that is both human readable and machine actionable. And we do this through rich skill descriptors as well. Our platform is OpenRSD. It's exactly the same as the WGU platform. It's free, it's open to everyone. And the reason that we made a different platform is simply for the international market. We have a lot, as you can probably see, of Western governance universities' rich skill descriptors imported into OpenRSD. You will be able to access the ones they make public. there in OpenRSD, as well as things like the Australian Skills Classification System. We've just put all of those into RSD form. Thanks, Chris. And so what do we do with the personal evidence record? Well, at the moment, we embed it in the metadata of a digital badge for that portability and mobility. We utilize the evidence field, and basically it supercharges the information that we can pack into a digital badge. Thanks, Chris. If you're in K-12, or if you are in an environment where your learners don't have immediate utility around their badges, so, students probably won't need their badges until they're going for employment situations or further education. And so what we can do is, yes, we can put it to a digital badge, and we do so in this situation as well. Chris, can you click on the call outs? But what we do is we can take that data from your learning management system, bring it into Credentialate and run it through the rules and the models. And then we push it back into the learning management system. And so the reason we do that is that so we have that visibility for learners, for parents, and for teachers on a 24/7 basis. They know immediately how they're doing against the cohort. And when they need to have their badges for that hiring situation, for employment or for further study, we can bake those badges, push them to their backpack, and they have full use of that. It's just another way of utilizing the data and making sure that we are constantly enabling learners to tell their story by making this skills data visible. Next slide. And yeah, so thanks, Chris, making them all come up at once. I just want to recap, because I know I threw a lot of information at you, but we are taking data from where the data lives, which is probably your LMS. We can take it from multiple places. We can bring it in, we can align it, we can map it, and then we can push that data into a place where learners can use it. It's either a digital badge, which is generally what we do at the moment. We could push it straight into a wallet, such as the WGU Achievement Wallet. That personal evidence record could go straight in. And we can also push it to things like Smart Resume. We have that integration happening right now. So I wanted to leave you with, yeah, we are very flexible in the way that we can work with you. But we always come from that point of being enabling learners to tell their story. That's the important thing. Thanks, Chris. And we're at Q&A.
Wonderful. Thank you, Margo. And again, wonderful to see those additional examples of institutions and community colleges equivalents and their journey and some of the benefits that they're attaining. Wonderful. Well, we're now at the Q&A session. So again, please feel free to pop your questions into the Q&A. I want to kick that off by actually referring back to some of the concepts and constraints that you flagged, Rufus. And in our first word cloud, resources, money, funding, that was certainly one of the key ones. And I think, Darin, one of the things you flagged is just start, right? Just get started. I get a question probably to both of you in terms of recognizing that community colleges are resource constrained. But we want them just to get started. And in the second word cloud, that engagement. So yeah, Rufus and Darin, any thoughts on how should people start with that engagement to the various stakeholder groups?
I guess my initial outreach would be the engagement with the employers. What we are finding in our workforce projects is that the employers are looking for ways to better understand the competencies and the skill sets that our students are coming to them with, and where they may have some deficiencies. And by establishing an early relationship, and I'm talking about in addition to having them sit on a business advisory board or committee. I'm talking about in a consulting type of role, in terms of sharing what you're doing at your college so that they can help you build the necessary elements that should go on your student record, on your profile, and that could be consistent across the industry. And if you're able to do that, then I think a student can have that notion of portability across state lines. They will have consistency, and we will have the opportunity to remain current. Because right now, one of the big issues I would see is with the technology moving as rapidly as it is, it's are we actually providing the skill sets and currency with our students that's needed in the workplace? And if not, how can we get there? And I think it's by engaging and working more closely with our employers. And they, in turn, the ones we've been working with, are willing to come to the table with funding so that we can be more robust in what we do.
And Darin, I see you were nodding throughout Rufus's comments, but please, yeah.
I agree with that, and would go a little bit further. If your school has employer relationships, or if you find that employers are sending individuals to you, or if employers are engaged, especially if employers are engaged in tuition assistance or reimbursement programs for their staff, that having outreach with those employers to say, what if we were able to credential around the skills that you need for the positions you're hiring our students for anyway, and subsidizing, if not outright paying for their tuition, and develop your prototypical proof of concept models that way. I would then further suggest that maybe if you reach out to other schools within your system and form a collaborative to work on this problem together, I think you might find potentially grant funding opportunities that would be willing to subsidize your demonstrations of the value of this. States are more and more keenly interested in how to activate the talent within their states to address what is increasingly becoming a more dynamic labor market here in the US, in order to keep people employed, to upskill, reskill. Working with your Department of Education, starting with high schools, as well as your commissions of higher education, to attempt to get funding allocated in state level budgets to support you in these efforts. Those are the things I would suggest. But if nothing else, and I want to hashtag again Margo's remark just start, Edalex offers a suite of products that are amazing, where you could start to define some of these skills based upon course level outcomes, just to see what they look like, and then start having conversations. And I think that you might start getting buy-in that way as well. There is no wrong move when it comes to just taking that first step. And it can be small, it can be ambitious. But the important thing is to just do it, not to infringe upon Nike.
Fantastic. Thank you both. I'll jump to the Q&A. So we have some couple of great questions in there. I know, Darin, you've answered a couple along the way. But this one that I'll pick first is, what are some examples that you're currently practicing to clearly let the students know of the value of your micro-credentials or badges? Some students tend not to fully recognize the value of the certificate, the program, the degree that they've just completed. So yeah, I'll throw that out to the whole panel.
I can start. As we've been developing the wallet platform, and we continue to develop the wallet platform because this will never be done. we have engaged with our students. They are co-developing with us. We ask them what matters to them, what's important. We have done surveys and focus groups on the value of micro-credentialized badges in terms of the marketplace. And this is anecdotal, but I'll give you one statement that just sticks with me that one of our students said. And this was not in a focus group, it was in the survey. I'm already using my wallet and my badges with my current employer to show them how my learning is aligned to what I do for them and career growth with them. Thank you. So this is what I think that sometimes we might run the risk of overburdening this idea that a badge must have a value in every sense, in every way before we do it. And I think that we can't do that at the risk of an assertion. You heard me say that earlier. And the badge can have value for people in ways we can't even think of. So ask them, engage with them, give them something and say, tell us how this works for you. Is it meaningful? And let your students, let your consumers tell you what matters most. I'm sticking with that answer.
Brilliant. Right. I think that's a perfect 10 from an Olympic perspective. We've got just 2 minutes left, so I'll move on to another question from Corinne, which is, in your opinion, what steps should or could the district take to implementing these kinds of initiatives at the colleges? And Rufus, this might be one for you to tackle.
Well, I think what the college could do is to inform people. We've been talking about marketing. We've been talking about different kinds of sessions. But when we bring in something new, we have to understand the medium that our students are currently looking in, are working in right now. And if we put out information like this in a medium that they can see it in a reoccurring format, they can see it through clubs, they can see it through student communications, through platforms that an institution has, or even external external platforms. I think it's more about communications and understanding and a sense of encouragement. Because if you're going to send this information out there, you need to talk about the communications that you're having with state agencies, that funding can be addressed this way. We can make sure that we can help you in terms of connecting with employers. These are the employers who are looking to have conversations. They're looking for these types of employees and these type of skill sets. And if you can connect them with some local businesses and others that can be a part of this communication, and you can have some joint communication, then I think it would be helpful. I just think it's just putting information out there that they can understand, that they can respond to, because you've never asked their opinion. You've never sent out a series of information encouraging them, quite frankly, to get skills, and even skills that can give them jobs right now. Because we've kind of stayed away from that, because we don't want them to leave our institutions until they complete the 2-year degree and those kinds of things. But times have changed. So I think it's just more communications directly to our students.
Brilliant.
And faculty and staff.
Great. Thank you. Well, we've come to time, much more that would love to dive into, but I really want to thank and acknowledge Rufus, Darin, and Margo for each of your thoughts and insights. We will share the recording. Happy to share the deck as well. So thank you. I know we had quite a crowd for this, and really appreciate your questions and contributions to the word cloud. And I think to just get started. There are so many resources out there that each of that WGU, that Edalex, as well as from Dr. Glasper. So it is very much a supportive community. So we're each happy to help you. So thank you for joining today. We really appreciate your participation, and hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you very much, and thank you, panelists.